Hey everyone, it is January 22, 2015. I'm Rene Ritchie, and right now we're going to talk all about comics and help columns and Apple laptops at different other people's events and smaller screens and more RAM, and there's just too much stuff to keep track of. But this is the iMore Show. Joining me today, we have, starting at the left, because she's always at the left, Ali Kazmucha. How are you, Ali?
I'm pretty fancy today. We'll see as the show goes on how I feel.
How do you claim the first slot in Google Hangouts every week?
I can't tell you that. Can't tell you that. Actually, Renee's always the first one.
Oh.
So I don't know. I can't tell you.
All right.
Tell you, but then I have to kill you.
Also joining us, Serenity Caldwell. How are you, Ren?
Hi, I'm good. I'm finally able to breathe, so I'm really excited about that.
Breathing is good.
Breathing is really good, and it's something that I wasn't able to do for like 3 weeks. So
3 weeks?
Yeah, I had a horrible sinus infection. It was not fun.
We thought she got an Android virus, and then we thought it might have been an alien invasion.
Okay.
Yes, man.
Well, you did have to hang out with all those Android freaks last week.
That's true.
Phil Nicketson is
Totally
not
all
a
their
freak.
fault. I can blame Phil and Derek, right? That's allowed.
Absolutely.
Andrew also.
Yeah.
And Ren, you brought a guest.
I did. I brought our new comics guy, Rich Stevens.
And I brought a giraffe.
Yay! Oh man, we have a fun-filled podcast.
And who did the giraffe bring, Rich?
The giraffe brought that disease.
Oh, no. Okay, the giraffe is not my friend anymore.
Sorry. He's got Android lung.
I was saying beforehand, Rich, you are much less... All your comics are 8-bit, but in real life, you're like a full 256-bit.
Yeah, I've been eating a lot.
So, you've been doing comics for a long time. Your primary gig is Diesel Sweeties?
Yep.
So you tell us a little bit about that, just for people who are tragically unfamiliar?
Just basically, I do a daily pixel comic joke strip for 15 years now, and it started out as kind of a high concept where robots would date people, and then it just kind of turned into peanuts with dick jokes.
That's the most succinct explanation I've ever heard for Diesel Sweeties.
Yeah, well, it's because it doesn't really... I don't really do plots anymore, and I don't have the attention span to do a single topic. So I kind of just do what I'm thinking.
And we're lucky enough now, Ren, to have this at iMore.
Yes, it's true. I'm really excited about... What are we calling it right now, Rich? Like, we're calling it Pixel Perfect, I think.
It was the Pixel Project. It was
Pixel Project, that's right.
It doesn't matter what you call it.
Yeah. It's that awesome comic that runs on Tuesdays on iMore.com. If you're not looking at it yet, you should.
Are we officially Tuesday now?
We're Tuesdays, I think,
Awesome.
for the time being, yeah.
Great. Tuesday's a good day.
Tuesdays is an awesome day.
I feel good about Tuesdays.
The Flash is on Tuesdays.
Mm-hmm.
Is that any good?
Agent Carter's on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
It's comic booky stuff, Rich. It has to be good.
I like Agent Carter.
Mm-hmm. Eugene Carter is very good. I'm enjoying it so far.
So we have the new comic strip, which you can find on Tuesdays. We also have new help articles. Peter Cohen, who couldn't join with us today, I believe he's still waiting in the Dunkin' Donuts line on Cape Cod because winter. But he's starting a new Mac help column. And Ali, you're doing the iPhone and iPad version of that.
I am. So instead of me just basically telling you what I'm going to write about, help and how-to-wise, you can tell me what to write about.
Nice.
And may or may not listen.
Well, no, but it's a place. So a lot of times we do a lot of, like, Ali does so many how-to articles. She's pretty much literally almost written the book on iOS help. But the idea is that people have different problems. We wanted someplace that they could go to actually ask about the problems that are affecting them.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to, probably give everyone in my family that email. Please try this before calling me directly.
That's like every conversation I have for the past 15 years is like, can you fix this for me?
Me and my brother wanted to get, I think it was Think Geek or another site had these shirts on, you could buy it, said, I'm not IT support or something, and we were going to wear it to every family function.
Happy Thanksgiving. I'm not IT support, I swear.
Don't ask me a question about an iPhone.
Well, Ren spent the whole holiday period retrofitting connected devices into our parents' home.
This is true. And my father is actually fairly technically literate, so it's not even like they have an excuse. He works for Apple.
What'd you hook up?
I hooked up a Nest and a Wemo and some speakers, and I taught my mother how to use the Sonos system, which
Nice.
I don't know if she still remembers, but I'm hoping that she does.
So basically, you got the task list that your dad didn't want to do.
I mean, granted, my dad crawled under the house and was like refitting like actual electricity, so I feel like I got the better end of the deal.
Yeah.
Well, unless he crawled under there to get away from it.
My secret man cave is literally a cave.
I was saying before the show, I got this new camera to try out, and it doesn't seem to work with Google Hangouts, so I couldn't use it. But it's a what is it called? It's Precision HD, which says Tandberg on it, but I believe they've been bought out by I think Cisco, something like that. And I like cameras that have depth, and this looks like it has a lot of depth, so we'll see what the results are. I'm not sure yet.
Looks kind of like a battle droid.
I love that it sort of just comes
Gives it
up.
extra cool points.
Roger. And then I got another microphone to try out because I made the mistake of speaking to both, Alex Lindsay and Marco Armont. So
Oh, no.
We're Assure here to try, Ren. What are you using these days?
I am using the same wonderful microphone that I got when I spent a ton of money on radio play podcasting supplies, which is an Audio-Technica AT2020.
Nice.
It's just like your basic old cardioid mic, but I really like it in part because it does really dynamo sound and it's fairly easy to hook up. Although I do have to have a little USB Blue Icicle
I've got that
intermediary.
too.
Yeah, but I don't mind it because it's much better than the system I was originally using when I started doing radio plays, which was like this big honking USB mixer that would short out half of the time. So it would sometimes it would work and then sometimes it would be terrible. And in general, I remember recording a lot of things that never actually got recorded because the mixer would freak out and insert Dalek noises.
Yeah, so I'm using the Hail right now, which is Hail. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's what Twit uses. We use it on Mac Break Weekly. Everyone does, and I think Dan Benjamin uses it on 5x5. But Marco recommended I give this a try because it would make my voice less nasally and tinny than it currently is.
Ooh.
We'll see how that goes.
Anything that can improve your voice. So that's an interesting pitch for mics.
I'll take that, yeah.
Blunt, but honest.
All right, so there was some fun news this week and some fun things that were going on. One of the most interesting things to me is that they had the State of the Union, which I understand is a big party that they have in America every year, and a photo went around showing the press gallery above the president and vice president, and it was resplendent in aluminum stripes and glowing Apple logo stars. It just press person after press person was using MacBooks. And then the next day there was the Windows 10 event in Redmond, and as almost anybody could have guessed, a lot of the press people in the audience were also using MacBooks. Mac has about 10% of the market, but there was about 50 to 90% saturation at any of these events when it comes to Macs. We saw the same thing at CES. I blogged these. I find it super interesting because I think tech people are really engaged. A lot of us have access to any technology that we want. We can pretty much get any laptop we want. No one mandates what we get. And we also use them a lot. We use them a lot while traveling, and we use them under highly stressful, highly intense situations. Like when the president is speaking, or in our case, when Apple is doing an event, you can't have anything fail, and you can't have anything slow down. And I think it's interesting that tech people seem to way more than the market shows pick Mac products. I don't know, Ren, have you had the same experience?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, in part, I want to say that Macs are Macs are easier. No, I feel like in general, when it comes to writing live events and doing things like that, there's a lot of good software for the Mac that's available that, has sort of become available for the PC as time has gone on, but I feel like in this one sort of niche category, we actually have a slight advantage over our PC counterparts, because there's nothing more fun than trying to write something in Word and then trying to make a CMS accept it and then, emailing. And also, I feel like Mac laptops in general, the battery life, the general portability has kind of outpaced. Again, Windows laptops catching up, but I tend to prefer a Mac keyboard for writing on. I think it might just be personal preference, honestly. When it comes down to it, we don't, as journalists, we don't have to rely on a lot of the software that the businesses that still rely on Windows really count on, and as such, we have a little more freedom in choice and choosing what we'd like. And I think for the majority of us, that's a Mac.
I think it might change too because so many services are going cloud or web-based too that it's becoming less dependent upon platforms. So, we use Trello for content management. We don't have some program that has to run on Mac or Windows. So I think as that becomes a little bit less of a barrier, you kind of have more of an option to choose there.
Yeah, it's kind of like why the iMac took off, right? Because most people just wanted to go on the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Power cable, Ethernet cable, you're done.
Yeah, and it's pink.
So we take a quick break so I can tell you about PDF Pen for iPad and iPhone. It is version 2.0 and it brings all new professional level features to Smile's powerful mobile PDF editing app. That's what I'm supposed to say, Ren. You know what I want to say?
What do you want to say?
I love PDF Pen. I use it all the time. I get these documents, and I don't know how to use paper anymore. Whenever I have to write a check or fill in a form, I don't know how to write. I can still draw, but I can't write. And just opening it up in PDF Pen and doing it on my iPad, it's fabulous.
Anything that doesn't require me to write a signature and then scan it in or take a picture of it and then do something crazy to it to make sure that it's secure and authorized and authenticated generally makes my life easier. So I'm a big fan of PDF Pen and Smile in general.
I forget who it was, but someone on Twitter yesterday, Ali, was saying how they had to print out something for their insurance company, fill it out, and then fax it back to them. What the fax is a fax?
Like an animal. No, we don't do that anymore.
Fax machines still exist.
I started using PDF Pen, I think, back in college, like an older version, and it was smarter than me then, and it's still smarter than me now. So, yeah, I still use it on a regular basis on Mac and on iOS.
Here are some of the new features. There's a new editing bar, provides easier access to popular tools and properties. There's new palm and wrist protection when writing and highlighting. There's apply strong password encryption to PDF documents. You can number pages automatically, including Bates numbering. There's support for iCloud Drive and AirDrop, and you can view and navigate annotations in the sidebar. To be honest, though, I just open it, I fill in the form, I sign it really quickly, I save it, and I send it back, and then I get on with my life. There's this thing where people look at the price of an app and they say it's expensive, but they don't realize how much time it saves you. And that time could be spent, eating fried chicken, watching Guardians of the Galaxy. Rich, that time could be spent reading Diesel Sweeties.
Well, I'm still stuck on the fried chicken.
That's the thing. It lets you do these things without the aggravation, without the time, and that to me doesn't matter what the price is. Those things are invaluable. So what I want you to do is go to the App Store right this minute. You can pause the podcast even to do it. Just go to the App Store, search for PDF Pen 2. That's PDFPEN space 2. App Store search, you got to be really specific. PDF Pen 2. Or just go to smilesoftware.com/iMore. That way they know that you heard about them from us and makes everybody happy. But this app, I used it again. We had to fill out a whole bunch of new iMore paperwork over the holidays, and I just used PDF Pen for all of it. It was terrific. Couldn't be happier. Oh, thank you, Smile. Thank you, PDF Pen. You actually do make me smile.
Aww.
Man, who would call that expensive? Anybody who would call this expensive has never bought Acrobat Pro.
Oh, God, Acrobat.
It was some interesting. Our friends at Windows Central discovered the post that I put up about this, and they were none too pleased with it. So we got some interesting feedback. One was that journalism isn't a real job, so of course we can go away with the Oazu Max because there's no requirements for it.
Ouch.
Yeah, I know.
Are they journalists?
Well, no, it wasn't the writers; it was the readers.
Oh.
Another one that people really can't, like, Macs are toys and they can't be used for real work. And some of these I find interesting because. One of the advantages the Mac has is that you have OS 10, but you can also go drop down to Unix, and if you want, like Derek Kessler, our news director, he works for the Army part-time. He's in the National Guard, and he just runs a virtual machine and accesses their PC-based systems that way, so he has all three platforms available to him at all times. And yes, Apple's proprietary and doesn't let OS 10 run and other stuff, but it means that the Mac is something that you can really use everything on. But I think it's a testament to, like, the hardware quality, the battery life, and the general stability that people who need to be able to input stuff onto the web continuously use it. And I think it's also super interesting that a lot of startups, like a lot of the companies we see every day now, increasingly, from Google to, I remember CES last year, I was flying back on the plane, and I was sitting across from people who do not work at Apple but are responsible for really, really critical components of major operating systems and software that a lot of people use every day were just sitting there programming on their MacBooks the entire time. It was just what they wanted to use.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate the personal preference angle. Again, like as our software moves to the cloud and as we're in general able to decouple ourselves from specific operating systems, it becomes personal preference and it becomes what you like to work on. And I mean, for some people, that may be Metro, or what the operating system formerly known as Metro. Yeah, that may be on an Android tablet, they may be on an iPad, that may be on a Mac. I think it's ridiculous that there are still people in this day and age who are like, Macs are toys. You can't run you can't run games on a Macintosh. You can't do this. I'm like, guys, it's 2015. You can run Windows on a Mac.
It's the same damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually really interesting. Peter's not here because I was hoping he'd talk about it, but he'll pick it up next week. But he did a piece about his son coming up to him and saying, and Peter's in an all Mac household. All his kids have Mac Minis, and his son said, "Dad, I really want a gaming PC." And Peter went through all the stages, denial, anger, acceptance, and then he helped his son build a gaming PC because, as much as some people might think Mac are toys, one area where Macs clearly don't operate as well is still gaming. And if you want hardcore gaming and you want to be able to upgrade your gaming machine constantly, you're still building a PC.
Yeah, but I mean that's nice though because it keeps the gamers one step away from us.
There's nothing wrong with
in their
gamers.
box.
I am still convinced that Peter's first reaction was probably go to your room and think about what you just said.
Yeah.
Oh.
How dare you? Well, actually, go ahead.
I was going to say I was going to call Child Protective Services, but I thought better of it.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's interesting to me because John Moltz actually had the same experience, and he wrote about it on Macworld about not necessarily building his son a PC, but about his son wanting a gaming machine, and him being like, "Oh, I need to now do research on what actually is a good gaming machine that doesn't cost $4,000, Razer." So he ended up with a Lenovo machine, and he was like, this is a fairly sturdy machine. It's not crappy plastic, but it still doesn't have any of the same build quality or finesse that Apple does, in part because there's all this crap littering the desktop and the machine when you first boot it on. And I had to get rid of like 4 different antivirus things, and I had to get rid of 2 Trojans that had just existed on the machine when I first booted it up. And it's just,
How does that work?
I don't even I assume that they're all like little helper applications that either through payment or advertising or God knows what have signed a contract with Lenovo to say like, we're going to be self-installed on your Mac or on your PC when you first boot this up. But it seems like such a terrible user experience.
Well, and back to having what Peter experienced, I grew up in a household that's completely divided. My parents were always PC people, but I was a Mac person. My brother was a PC person. He was a gamer. He's 4 or 5 years younger than me. And my brother, who is a PC person, keeps begging my parents to get a Mac because he's tired of doing tech support. So it's more of a get them a Mac, it just works. I don't want to do this anymore. So it's interesting to see household dynamics when it comes to PC and Mac and the reasons behind that.
Can you really spend $4,000 making a gaming PC?
Oh yeah.
Razer.
And that's somehow is that comparable to a Mac Pro?
I think Alienware is pretty expensive too, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to specifically graphics cards performance, which is something that Apple really has never focused supremely on. I mean, the Mac Pro has a pretty damn good graphics card for if you're doing, video work and things like that. But the kind of pacing that you want to put a true gaming, if I want 120 frames per second on all of my, super fast-paced games. You're going to want a video. Yeah, it's a ridiculous amount of frames.
If I wanted that kind of reality, I'd go outside.
Exactly.
You work in 16 bits.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here next to a couple of Ms. Pac-Man machines. I'm that's as far as I go.
Yeah, level of gaming. I don't necessarily begrudge people who really want that super real experience, but it's definitely. I mean, again, when we go back to the sort of the right device for the right use case, Apple has never claimed to be we are the machine you want if you want to do hardcore gaming. It's if you want to make awesome creative stuff, or you want to write, or you want a machine that just works, if you want something that covers most use cases, hey, Mac. If you want these very, very specific sliding cases, PC might still be okay, and that's not a bad thing.
Yep. Also, if you work in the enterprise or anyone who's still running IE6 as their main, point of egress into ActiveSync in their enterprise environment, you pick your tool.
Yeah, you talk about the U.S. Army, Rene. Like,
Yes.
IE6 is still a major component of those things.
I remember because my old company was a database company, and we would often have to pitch customers who were in U.S. government and U.S. services, and they weren't allowed to open up ports on the file. There was just no way to actually talk to them or to help them with tech support or do any of those sorts of things, and that's the environment a lot of people are unfortunately working under. We can't all have app neutrality.
That's true.
So another thing that's sort of related to this is when I was at CES, and I might have mentioned this before, but we've since done some more thinking on it. One of the things that kept happening to me, and it's never happened to me at CES before, is when I was standing in line. Our stage was right next to us, really busy Starbucks, so you'd spend half an hour, 45 minutes in the Starbucks line, or when I was waiting, like when Ren was talking to somebody at a booth and I was waiting for, several times while I was waiting, I was using my iPhone 6 Plus to keep busy, and people would come up to me and say, "Oh, iPhone 6 Plus, how do you like it?" And I'd say, "Yeah, I like it." And the first thing, that's my question, okay? I am the tech writer here. I'm supposed to see other people's phones and ask them about this. They're totally stealing my jam. But it was regular people. It was, Vegas natives. It was people who were vendors there. It wasn't tech people at all. They were selling products or working at the establishments. And they were asking because they had just switched. They almost all had large screen Android devices, and when the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus came out, they'd switched to it, and they were loving it so much they wanted to sort of talk to other people who were using it to see if they were loving it too. And I remember once I was waiting in line at Starbucks, and a gentleman from Vegas said, "Hey, how'd you like that iPhone?" And then a woman who was standing next to him said, "Oh, I got one too." And there was 4 or 5 people all of a sudden who had just switched to the iPhone. They're like, "Oh, I'm so much happier now." And it was really interesting to me, and I wonder if that is just a sign of the pent-up demand that there was for these larger screen phones.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's something that I've seen in my own friends group with people who, have had big, giant Android screen devices for the last 2 years because they're like, oh, I like the big screen. I like having a phone that, also doubles as a tablet. And having several of them switch to the iPhone 6 Plus in the last year, I don't even necessarily know if it's because I haven't really talked to them in depth about it, but I don't know if it's necessarily I've always wanted to be on an iPhone and they just never had the size that I wanted, or the 6 Plus just seems like the better thing for me, or I've gotten fed up with Android.
I had a lot of friends, I think, when the 6 and 6 Plus that seemed to have a lot of anxiety about that on Facebook. And I saw a lot of statuses saying, thinking about switching to iOS now that the screens are bigger, should I get a 6 or a 6 Plus? And typically my first question to them was, what Android phone do you have? Mm-hmm. And if they fell in line with like a Galaxy S5 or a Moto X or something like that, it was get the 6. If they were, saying they're coming from a Note or a phone like that, it was get a 6 Plus. And it seems like a lot of my friends that did make the switch, either you don't really hear too much from them, which is typically a good sign because the first time they have a phone problem, they're, whining about it on Facebook.
And it's your fault.
Yeah, or they, they love it, or, it's tiny little things, or I'd get questions like, I did this on my Android and I don't know how to do this on iOS. So you'd get questions like that, but I haven't really heard too much of the, I hate this and want to go back to Android. I'm sure there are some, but I haven't heard it.
That's funny.
Sorry, go ahead, Rich.
No, I was going to say, the few people I know who have bought 6 Pluses, their motivation was, well, I'm just not going to buy an iPad. They just went out and bought this because they've convinced themselves they're saving money by buying this, $800 phone because they didn't buy a $300 iPad as well or something like that.
Oh, people. It's
consolidation or something.
Going back to what you said, Ren, I think I've always had this idea in my head that it's similar to when the iPhone was first introduced. It was only available on AT&T, and eventually everyone who could or would live with AT&T had an iPhone. And if you just absolutely couldn't live with AT&T, you had not an iPhone on Verizon. I think that's one of the reasons the Galaxy line got so popular. But then in 2011 in January, Apple released the iPhone for Verizon, and suddenly you could have an iPhone on Verizon and eventually other carriers, and over time a bunch of people did that, and then Verizon's saturation level went up. And it seems similar, like some people wanted an iPhone, but they felt like they needed a bigger screen phone, and between the two they would choose the bigger screen phone. But now you can have an iPhone that is a bigger screen phone, so over time we'll see that sort of normalize as well.
Do you guys actually prefer the bigger? Or am I just crazy?
I like my 6. I see the value in the 6 Plus. My boyfriend has a 6 Plus, and I've been playing around with it a little bit. And I see the value in certain tasks, but for general juggling and day-to-day use, I feel like the 6 fits in my hand a lot better.
Same.
Allie, I know you have a differing opinion.
Pants of holding be damned. I like the iPhone 6 Plus better. That was my big issue to begin with. I, up until about a month ago, used the iPhone 6 regularly, and my 6 Plus I kind of just used here and there when I needed. The battery is just a tank. So when we were on vacation for 2.5 weeks, I took my 6 Plus because the battery. And when I came home, I picked up my iPhone 6, and I was like, it's so little and cute, and it feels weird now. So we'll see. I might complain about the 6 Plus when the weather gets warmer and I don't have a heavy jacket or a sweatshirt or something to stick my iPhone 6 Plus in. And when I have to go back to just sticking it in a jean pocket, I might have some complaints then. But you can't beat the battery life, and I'm so used to it now. It's kind of, I think it's your memory trains itself to become acclimated to that, and that's now even my 6 feels small.
That's interesting. I've been catching myself going back to my 5 just as a Wi-Fi device because I like holding it, except that I hate the beveling on the side. I'm so used to the curve on the 6. I just love spinning it.
Mm-hmm.
So
No,
that was... Go ahead,
Renee. Oh, no, I was just saying the curve is something that's really interesting.
Like if they would make a curved 5 size?
Yeah, like a slightly smaller. Well, we were talking about this, Renee, and I've been going back and forth about the 4 versus the 4.7 inch. Do we really need to go back to a 4-inch phone? Because there are some people, like I know John Gruber, is very adamant that, like, all right, the 6 is nice and all, but I really like my 4-inch screen, and being able to go from one end of the screen to the other without having to reach or have a thumb extender.
Is that a thing? Is that like a selfie stick?
Oh my god, it's totally a thing.
$1 billion idea.
It's totally a thing.
Why haven't you blogged this, Allie?
Is it really? It's really a thing?
No, it's really a thing. Hold on, I'll find the link.
It's like, I think it's thumb boner, right?
Oh god. I think that might be worse than
Oh, internet, you
selfie
never
stick.
disappoint.
Is it actually a thing?
I'm apparently thinking so.
Yep.
Oh,
There's the
geez.
Thanko thumb. There's.
Oh.
What do? You just put it? Is it like a thimble or something?
Oh man. Oh, Allie, I've got a wonderful photo for you.
Ugh.
Oh,
Got a wonderful,
geez.
horrible photo, which I will now share for those of us on the live stream, and we'll
Wow.
also link to it elsewhere. How do I even screen share?
That is some cannibal power tools stuff right there.
All right,
thanks.
check it out, horrible people.
Oh. It should have like blood coming out of it too. Just
Is that like a
looking at it.
sausage?
Yeah. It's basically like.
Oh, okay, that's creepy.
Yeah, that's pretty terrible, right?
Like pretty much one of the creepiest things I've ever seen in my life.
That's being incredibly generous right there, calling it creepy.
Yeah, so for people not on the live stream, we'll have a link to these.
It's like a little dead finger, pretty much, but it's hollow and apparently can reach the tops of your screens.
It's a little bit of grandpa to help you type.
Ah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so bad. So that actually it got me thinking a lot because I spoke to John about it on the talk show 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he was saying, like, could Apple go back to a 4-inch phone? Would they maybe do an iPhone 6C? And part of the problem here is Apple's a business, and right now they have the iPhone 6 at the $200 spot and the iPhone 6 Plus at the $300 spot. And if they were next year to have an iPhone 6, an iPhone 6s, an iPhone 6s Plus at those same spots, where would the smaller iPhone go? Would that go at the $100 spot? That would be a brand new phone with top-of-the-line specs at $100, which Apple's never done before. So would it be an iPhone 6C, so they gave it last year's specs, or a plastic thing? Like, how would they make it less valuable to fit at a lower price tier? But then I started thinking some more, and I was just wondering, is it really smaller screens that people want? Because one of the reasons I like the iPhone 6 Plus so much, and even the iPhone 6, is that it's such a bigger window into apps and into the internet. But there is, to Rich's point, a lot of bezeling on it. So I was wondering if you kept a 4.2, 4.7-inch screen, but had it in a phone the same size as the iPhone 5, is that really what people want? Do they really want a smaller screen, or do they want a smaller phone?
Yeah. Go ahead, Rich.
I was going to say, that'd be pretty neat. You could probably make this thing at least 1/8 of an inch narrower. I mean, I would pay for fatter, too, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And most people don't, but, like, I would rather have a slightly thicker phone that is easier to hold. I mean, one of the things that breaks my heart about this guy is I have to keep it in a case because I've broken 2 screens because it's just too damn slippery and too big.
When did the second one happen?
The second one, it's a smaller crack. But
what?
That one, I don't even know when that happened.
It's gonna have to get taken away soon.
Yeah. No,
We're gonna get you a phone helmet.
We're gonna have to get her one of those little tight play school.
Now I am using a case like a heathen. But seriously, yeah.
I have my Apple leather case. I like it.
I find this plenty grippy. I don't know if I have weird Canadian frozen fingers or something, but I can't. If I'm holding it, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe
it doesn't bother me if I feel like it's different when you're holding it one-handed and doing other things, and I don't necessarily know if it's that it's slippery. It's a subconscious thing for me. Like, it's more top-heavy. The 6 and the 6 Plus are because they're longer. I just have a subconscious, like, someone's either going to come by and knock it out of my hand, or it's just going to fall out of my hand. So.
Yeah, I find holding it one-handed to type, with the phone down, no problem. The moment I'm tilting it up, say, to read if I'm laying down, it's in my face every 30 seconds. Just bruised.
So is the answer to that a thicker phone, though, or a soft-touch exterior rather than a glossy exterior?
I'd be all over both. Be like a BlackBerry.
I think this year will be interesting, though, because this is the first year that Apple's technically released 2 new... Yes, I know they released a 5C and a 5S together, but the 5C replaced the 5 in its lineup. So this is the first year that we'll have probably 2 new models of phones coming out at the 2 different size points, and then 2 more, these 2, the current, that they have to figure out what to do with. So, and throwing another... If for some reason they decide to keep a 4-inch phone around, now you're talking 5 iPhone models that are all on the market simultaneously that are all going to change price points.
You look at the iPad lineup right now, and they did a hell of a job trying to reorganize the Air and the Mini lineup so that it actually made some semblance of sense on their website.
I think they're going to have to do that here.
Yeah, I mean, it's still the iPad lineup is still a little terrifying, to be perfectly honest.
For me, I feel like Apple, as far as models, and it's been a thing with simplicity. Like, whether it's, I remember when the 4 and the 4S came out, and people even in mainstream that don't know models like we do or specifications, they could tell the differences between the models, or they knew what other people had. And I feel like somewhere along the line that those lines are starting to blur. And I think Apple's going to have to do something to kind of unify that, because you look at the Apple website now, and I'm like, boom, boom, boom. There's like 17 devices in a row. Yeah. Normal people, they don't know the differences between those.
Well, and it's one thing that Apple's been doing so well for since 1997, when the product lines were simplified. It's like it was very much until recently. All right, you want an iPad? Here are your options. You want an iPhone? Here are your options. You want a Mac? Here are your options. It was all very, very simplified. You got like 2 or 3 things to choose from, and the way they disguised it, I thought, was actually very clever, at least on the Mac side, where take the MacBook Pro, for instance, where the MacBook Pro is actually a fairly complicated product when you think about it. MacBook Pro, you've got the 13-inch. Is the non-Retina still available somehow, clinging on to last life?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So you've got the non-Retina 13, the Retina 13, the Retina 15. And then you have all of the various upgrades and spec bumps within, but they managed to condense it in such a way so that you've got, you have all of those spec bumps, but they're hidden inside. All right, once you've chosen X model,
the good old days.
Happens. Yeah, exactly. The 4-quadrant days.
Yeah, the cheese grater, the toilet seat.
Sorry, can you hold that up again, Mitch?
What's that?
Hold that up again.
Sure. You get your cheese grater, your toilet seat, your giant bubble. and then you're a piece of titanium with a broken hinge.
Oh.
You know, good old days.
I mean, they might have to go to just asking questions like, do you like unicorns, colors, and ponies? Here,
Yes.
get a colorful iPhone. Well, I don't really know what the solution is to that problem, but I feel kind of hypocritical talking about it because I feel like I'm the same person 2 years ago that said, why does Apple not give me choice when it has to do with anything? And then they do, and I feel like now it's, it's confusing mainstream consumers.
Too much.
It's weird because
There's got to be a balance.
yeah, it's like everything is capable now, and now it kind of comes down to what do you like.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like back in the day where you're like, I cannot work on an orange iBook because it has an 800 by 600 screen. I have to get the MacBook Pro. But I mean, it doesn't really matter what phone you get. You know what I mean?
It's all personal preference. Yeah.
Like I don't consider those plastic cases cheaper. I honestly would take that over the 5S case in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
I was very skeptical at first when the 5C came out, and then when I held it in my hand, I was like, oh, this is not a cheap plastic. It's not,
Feels
it
nice.
doesn't feel cheap. It feels nice. I actually prefer this over the rough edges of, I actually preferred that, the feel of it.
Yeah.
It was kind of reminiscent of like the 3G, 3GS, how that felt in my hand.
Exactly.
And I remember when the 4 came out, I was like, oh, this looks so nice, but I don't like the way that it digs into my hand when I hold it.
It's like it's like a scuffed sandwich for your hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, retro iPhones.
Ooh.
Yeah, we got one of those laying around here somewhere.
You got parts of it on the floor for people to step on.
I have like tiny random little baggies of iPhone parts floating all over my desk.
Ooh.
You're like an iPhone serial killer. It's like Dexter's Workshop if Dexter didn't like iPhones.
Yeah, Rich only takes apart iPhones for fun and profit.
Who does?
Yeah,
Oh, really?
I mean, it's a normal conversation. I told Renee and Ren yesterday. The other day, my girlfriend stepped on something. She's like, ow. She's like, what the hell is this? And she picks up like Touch ID sensor. She's like, oh, and just set it on my desk. Like, that's a normal conversation that takes place in our house. I'm like, sweet, I lost that like 3 weeks ago. That's like normal.
How far do you live from me? I'm just about to take apart a 2011 iMac.
I'm like by Chicago.
Okay, so a little far.
It might be far.
That's an overnight on the Amtrak.
But it is interesting to those points. Where does Apple go next year? Logically, well, not logically, but based on previous patterns, the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus become the 6S and 6S Plus, and there is room underneath that. Do they keep around the current models and have two iPhone 6Cs? Do they have just two iPhone 6s? Usually the metal casings, they want to keep them being the premium products. They don't want you to get the cheaper premium version. So last time they made that plastic, but do we get iPhone 6C and iPhone 6C Plus? And then what happens?
I really hope I don't ever have to write iPhone 6S Plus.
Oh.
That name makes me cringe.
Ooh.
I really hope Apple doesn't use it.
Newton eMate 320, like.
Can you just use an emoji? Could it just be like the iPhone 6 poop emoji or something?
The iPhone unicorn, just random.
No, I mean, it's so weird to me that Apple hasn't unified its mobile lineup with its desktop lineup, which is to say, like, it's just the iMac, you know? It's the iMac, the iPad, or the iMac, the MacBook Air, the MacBook Pro. Then once
I know why.
Like with mobile, Apple set themselves up for that because, I mean, do you remember when I think it might have been the iPhone 3G, the white version was differentiated. It was the high-end model. So if you wanted, I have an iPhone 3GS and it is 16 gigs because it's white. Everyone knew that. It was like a status symbol. And I feel like Apple kind of set themselves up for that with mobile. There's always been differences physically that you can tell walking down the street if someone has an iPhone 6 Plus in their hand or someone has an iPhone 5S. Sorry, that was funny.
I thought I was muted, and then I was suddenly not muted.
I was like,
Google
whoa,
Hangouts
headphones flying all over.
You're right. In the gold iPhone last year, mobile is much more seen as a status symbol. Nobody really cares if Guy English is not walking around with the new Mac Pro on his shoulder, so everyone can go, ooh,
but I think
is that
at
the
a
new
point,
Mac Pro? And he's just beatboxing it out. But with phones, people
hilarious,
look at
be that way.
No, the thing that I'm interested to see is what happens when the Apple Watch comes out. Because not only are you looking at the Apple Watch with two different faces, you're looking at the Apple Watch with two different faces and God knows how many bands.
Two different faces, three different.
Different colors
sizes,
too.
three
That's
different
right. Rose
three different
gold and the
materials.
edition and the sport. And,
Yeah. And then the bands. Although
Yeah,
it's
I
interesting
think
because it
watches
doesn't.
are meant to be a status symbol, though.
Yeah.
No question.
That's always been that way in pretty much every culture. So I think that, and I think it gives accessory makers a huge market there. I mean, I'd give it a day before third-party companies are making bands and accessories for the Apple Watch. But I think with phones, at some point, they're going to have to streamline that down. It seems like they've already started doing it with the iPad. Sure, it's the iPad Air 2 and the iPad Mini 3.
They tried. They tried
But-
the new iPad, and it did not work. Nature selected it for extinction.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, but at least now they have two clearly defined iPad lines, the iPad Air and the iPad Mini. One's full-sized, one's mini-sized. And they could kind of run with that if they want to. And I feel like at some point they're going to have to do that with the iPhone. And it's, I don't know, it's too much. I can't handle it if I have to say I have an iPhone 6S Plus. Or,
But you're going to
no.
love it when you're looking for a case, because if it's even slightly thinner, the iPhone 6 Plus case won't fit, and then you'll be able to Google go iPhone case, and they'll give you.
don't
You
use
won't
a
know which
case.
one is which.
This is the first case I've used in I don't even know how long because I like it, not because I need it. So I probably wouldn't be heartbroken if I would probably just give up and not use a case.
I'm just hoping that Apple gets away from the numbers sometime soon because
Yeah.
man, the numbers and the number letter abbreviations. It feels like a Samsung move. You know, it doesn't feel like an Apple.
Our
like-
kids are going to be carrying around the iPad Air 32.
Yeah, I had an iPad 2. I had an Apple 2 Plus computer when I was a kid.
Yeah,
It
but
was like 2
yeah.
GS and
I still have my 2GS.
nice.
Dude. Take that from my
Still
cold
have a
dead hands.
3GS.
Nice.
See, I mean, this stuff all has historical value. It's a symbol of Apple since Woz would handcraft the wooden cases
Oh.
Oh,
on a
God.
mountain of snow where he walked to every day.
Do you think if you met Woz, you would cry or weep?
That is a very different distinction.
Yeah.
I think I would just fall down.
You
then
get
he
run
would
over
fix
by
you.
a Segway.
Oh no. Well, that's a good way to go.
What happened to Rich? Run over by Segway. Oh, that's a good way to go.
Yep, I was.
By Woz.
Killed by Woz.
He rang the horn. He threw a bunch of aluminum cards down on top of him and kept going.
That'd be great. I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
We'll call him up right now. Who's got
The watch
the
thing-
Woz phone?
The watch thing is super interesting to me because intellectually at the surface of it, you're going to buy it the same way you'd buy a phone. You'll choose which size you want, like you choose which size phone you want. You'll choose which finish you want. Granted, the prices aren't the same. The prices are actually different for the different finishes, unlike the phone, but you'll still pick whether you want the cheaper aluminum one, the middle-priced stainless steel one, or the expensive gold one, and then you'll choose your band the way you choose your case. I want the black case, the black band, I want the red one. But looking at Apple.com, the edition looks like it's much more set. Like even the little crowns are color matched to the band. So if you get the red Apple Gold watch, the crown, the digital crown, is actually red. So if you change the strap, does the crown stay red? Does that mean you're more locked into your fashion choices? And I don't know quite how that's going to work out yet. I think it's interesting though.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that thing. Like, I want that attached to me, but I also don't want to wear a band because I'm still a mouse user. I'm still that one weirdo who uses a mouse every day. I don't know. God.
Yeah, well, it's a question. There's a question of what wrist it's going to live on too, because I don't know.
Well, I mean, I only have two, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, are you an ambidextrous mouse user?
No, I actually trackpad and pen left and mouse right.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ambimousular?
Not the mouse. I use 2 or 3 different hands when I'm working, but I can only use right-handed mouse. It's old habit.
No, I agree with you. I can right-handed mouse forever, but left hand for drawing and left hand for tapping and everything else.
Yeah, it's weird too because I'm left-handed, but I don't use a pen anymore, and I transferred everything over to my right hand for the mouse. It's weird.
I'm left-handed, but I use a mouse with my right hand.
I think
Well,
that might have
this-
to be early edition computers too, because you think about like the Mac Plus. I mean, you could use the mouse on the left with the Mac Plus, but it just didn't feel right.
Yeah. I wonder if it's because it was like mousing is your main motion when you're using a computer, and then all those key commands we would all start doing, or everybody typed one-handed really slowly. They didn't need their good hand.
I remember when I was in school, our labs when we were in elementary school were all Mac labs, and I don't remember what Macs they were, but they would put those things over our keyboard so we couldn't see the letters.
What?
like during like typing. It was like this cardboard thing that tucked underneath the keyboard. So then we'd have to learn how to type properly with our fingers.
For touch typing?
Yeah, I don't know. It was just for keyboard, like to teach us how to type properly on a keyboard. Like it would on the screen, it would say type these letters, and like you couldn't look down and see because it would have a thing covering. So then you would have to do it by having your fingers on the right keys, and
Oof.
it was a little creepy.
That is gross. I never learned.
I think that's where I always used a mouse with my right hand, and I think it was because that's just how it always was. Like, we didn't have a computer at home. It was, on the right in computer labs or whatever, so I think it was just habit. I just never thought to move it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Same thing in college. Everybody had, we had like 20 Photoshop machines for maybe 25 kids, and it was like, use it, don't be precious. Don't unplug it and move it over. Just use the damn thing and shut up.
And then we learned that, like, in computer labs in high school, or we could go and we would have fun unplugging the mice from one computer and plugging into the one next to it.
Ah, you were mean kids.
We were mean kids.
Prankers is
the
word.
That is some terrorist stuff right there.
Ren, you wrote about your sort of internal monologue about when to use a sketchpad and when to use an iPad.
Yeah, well, it's something that I've been struggling with because, I mean, for anyone who's known my tech career, a lot of it has involved reviewing styluses because the first time I saw an iPad, I was like, oh man, digital journal, this is the best. And I think as we, kind of discovered very quickly, an iPad is not a Wacom tablet. And I don't think it's going to be until Apple decides to change what they're doing on their screens, which, who knows, may happen with the iPad Pro. That's a rumor we can talk about in a second. But, I have tried many, many, many styluses. And there are some better ones, and there are some worse ones. But there's no stylus currently on the market that makes me want to leave my journals or my moleskins or my yellow pad at home and solely use the iPad. And the thing I wrote, I was talking about, the MIT Mystery Hunt was last weekend, and I do that every year. And it was something where I was I had a program that I thought was going to work perfectly for this puzzle that we were doing, and I'm like, oh, there's this app, this will work perfectly for what we want to do, which was like kind of creating a map and a maze. And after an hour of trying to do it on this program, I just picked up a bunch of index cards and started writing on them and sticking them on the chalkboard instead, because as easy as it is, like that app was awesome, and that app easily allows you to like rearrange cards and things like that, but it just wasn't quite the same. It wasn't quite as fast. And there's something, I don't know, for me there is still something really wonderful about dealing with tactile surfaces, and rubber or disc or plastic on glass does not have that same feeling to it. And no matter how good the styluses go. I don't know, Rich, maybe you can talk a little bit about this, because I know you...
Well, I'm completely with you. I get so distracted when I use a computer that I've had to resort to writing all my comics on legal pads. I've got it down to I have very specific pens I like to use for sketching out borders versus actually writing dialogue, and it's gotten me to the point where I know how much dialogue I can fit in a bubble just by handwriting it, and I do all my writing on pads. Except this week I actually, with you, or was it last week, I used Post-it notes because I was having a really hard time structuring a joke. It was for the first time in my life I couldn't, or not in my life, but the first time in a while I couldn't really visualize the joke. So I was gone through a dozen Post-it notes to write 5 panels.
It works, though.
Yeah, it's fun to write. It uses a different part of your brain. I mean, it's literally I use a different hand. And I think it's better for focusing. I think you're in more control over it. It's like one of those things where no software is dictating what you produce at that point, because you're holding a pen in your hand.
Yeah, the only software that is dictating is the kind of pen that you're using and the kind of paper that you're putting it down on.
Yeah, I'm in love with legal pads. Ever since I was doing 12 comics a week, because I was doing my website and syndication, and I used to write on scraps of paper, piles of stuff everywhere, and just boom, legal pads. I feel bad I don't use my iPad for anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried, I've really, I've tried to keep it as just a sketch journal. I've tried to use it For writing, I don't think the styluses are nearly there yet. Even the Jot and its pixel point is better. Is like much better than anything we ever had. But I still would choose a legal pad in a heartbeat over writing on glass.
I mean, I can barely draw a stick figure, so I can't talk about drawing. But
Most of my drawing.
I know a lot of note-taking apps. You can handwrite notes, and I've never been comfortable with that either on the iPad. I don't know. Writing and drawing in general on the iPad is a weird experience for me.
Yeah, well, it's weird. Like if I'm using a digital device, I want to be able to cut and paste plain text.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's my mentality too.
Yeah, there's no upside to having a beautiful little Photoshop document of my handwriting if I then have to go retype it.
I can't read my handwriting, so it doesn't help anyone much.
Yeah, it doesn't help. Well, it helps future cryptographers. It's probably what it's helping.
I used a Wacom tablet for years when I worked as a designer, just because I had a 2-monitor display. I was using InDesign a lot, CorelDRAW and Illustrator a lot, and you could move across the screen just by touching different parts of the Wacom tablet, and you could just draw and write, and it was amazing. And styluses on the iPad have never given me that digitizer experience. The one redeeming quality I like about the Galaxy Note is underneath all that layers and layers of software is a really, really awesome Wacom-style digitizer that you can just fit in your hand. And even the Surface Pro 3, it's got the same kind of digitizer technology and Microsoft's ink technology in it. And that stuff is really great. So, you mentioned the rumors earlier, and one of the rumors earlier this week was that Apple is working on an Apple Pen. They say stylus, but Apple really wouldn't use the word stylus. They'd call it an Apple Pen. And but if they make an Apple Pen, I kind of think they need to make a digitizer, because unless they come up with some new crazy technology no one's ever seen before, the Bluetooth stuff and the multi-touch stuff by itself doesn't produce as good a quality input for me.
It'd be funny if they went into the high-end pen market right after going into the high-end watch market.
Rose gold pens, Rich.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Get a pen that can also be a $200 ballpoint to go with your fancy watch.
There's an Apple. Did Johnny Ive design a new Sharpie? What?
No, I mean, all right. So that rumor, and I have a piece formulating in my head that hopefully will get posted on iMore tomorrow. But the stylus rumor I find very interesting, because it's one that's bounced up and down sort of the will it won't it happen charts, because Apple way back like 2-3 years ago had a patent for a pressure sensitive stylus, and of course, as we know, Apple patents everything, so it's not necessarily a like this is definitely going to happen if Apple patents it, but the information that's coming out and the reoccurrence of the iPad Pro rumor does make me a little more hopeful that if Apple is going to release a stylus, it will be a stylus digitizer combo and not just something. Apple is not going to release a stylus that works on the same technology that competing stylus makers currently work on, because Apple has seen what current stylus makers are doing, and again, while what they are doing is a significant improvement to what we had 4 years ago, it's still not where it needs to be for daily professional use. However, if they, like, the rumor includes the idea of not only having a digitizer built into the screen, but having the pen provide some kind of haptic feedback so it feels less like drawing on glass, and that's the part of the rumor that really kind of caught me. Because, again, no matter how good the stylus is, even with Wacom tablets, like, no matter how good and how precise the Wacom digitizer is, it still kind of feels like you're drawing on plastic or drawing on glass in the case of the Cintiq. If they could figure out some way to make the pen feel, I don't know, squishier, feel like you're not drawing on a flat, hard surface that doesn't resemble paper in any way, that's a really intriguing rumor. And that's something that, again, may only appeal to a small group of users, but is potentially a road that they'd go down, not for, I think, the Creative Pro market, although that's kind of a checkbox that they could tick, but if they want to get into writing, and they really, they've seen what the Surface, I mean, the Surface is not doing banner numbers, but the Surface's stylus integration is actually one of the better, stylus integration on tablet computers that we've seen in recent years, and they've seen how well that can potentially work. And I suspect that, like, having the ability to write on a screen and have it be good writing and be helpful for professional organizations, businesses, signing documents, doing architecture-related drafting. Like there's a lot of potential business applications which might have finally opened Apple's stylus market from prototyping to this is something that could actually happen.
I mean, the thing that interests me, we were talking about this on Twitter, and Peter Skinner from 10-1 Design tweeted us back and saying he'd love to see this because he thinks it would make it better for all styluses. And you have to wonder, would Apple just make a stylus and a digitizer, or would they either immediately or down the road make pen kit so that all like the Adonit and the 10-1 and the Wacom and the 53 styluses could all work better with these devices.
Yeah, Apple has definitely screwed over accessory makers in the past, but at the same time, like, I have to hope that it would be something that's at least partially publicly available for competing manufacturers. In part because I think Apple, I don't know, it's such a hard nut to crack. It's such a hard market to be in. And like Wacom has spent its almost entire career being the best digitizer company in the space, and no one's really been able to touch them. So
yeah, they're like Kleenex, like it's just synonymous with tablet.
Exactly. Do you want to be able to draw on your computer? Get a Wacom tablet. Like
or this crappy thing.
Yeah, exactly. Or this crappy tablet that might have Wacom technology in it, or just crap.
Yeah.
Like there's no Wacom alternative, and for me to believe that Apple has a secret division that's solely been focused on trying to beat Wacom.
Holograms, right?
Those look good.
Drawing in the air.
See, that's weird because you talk about making an iPad Pro and giving it a pen. When I hear iPad Pro, I think to myself, oh, I want it to have a keyboard.
That's the MacBook Air, Rich.
Yeah, that's the MacBook Air with just the USB-C port. Although, you know what? There's also rumors that it might be the same machine. So maybe Apple is making a Surface.
The Surface is pretty cool, except for the fact that you can't carry it one-handed.
Yeah, it's actually a kind of a nice tablet, despite the fact that it runs Windows and has problems with switching in between. The grid system and just standard Windows.
It was a good idea that was horribly architected and marketed at first.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is room for something between a tablet and a laptop, but it doesn't need to be called no compromises, and it doesn't need to be designed the way that it was. And not having Touch Office until this year is just a travesty. But I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I think that's all super interesting, and I think it shows. Like I made a wish list for an iPad Pro a long time ago, and it included a digitizer, included a 4K camera, because if a viewfinder is that good, I want to use that for 4K video shooting. And there's all sorts of things. It could have instead of just a keyboard, Rich, it could have a keyboard cover the way the Surface does.
Please.
Apple designed one that you could just instantly stick it into and work with, and there's so many opportunities I think that they have there. And I think making the bigger phone means that, like, I carry an iPhone 6 Plus now. I don't carry my iPad Mini with me anymore, but it means that I'd be happier to have an even bigger iPad at home because I don't have to carry it around, and I can just use it for my creative pursuits or my productivity pursuits.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny how having these extremes in size really enables the other end of the extreme in sizes. Mm-hmm. In a way, like having a watch it kind of makes it more acceptable to have a gigantic phone. And I think maybe that's where the iPad is going to go. Because what's the difference between an iPad Mini and a 6 Plus?
Mark Edwards wants a 4-foot iPad that he can just use as his easel.
Okay.
What was the original Microsoft Surface?
Yeah, well, they announced a new Surface on the wall yesterday.
Those are cool.
Wall Surface, yeah.
The big-ass table becomes a big-ass wall hanging.
If you can make it lighter. I mean, maybe it was a table before because it was heavier. Well,
it was a table before because it used infrared for multi-touch. It didn't use capacitive touch, so you had to have the infrared cameras underneath it. But now they've gone, proper British multi-touch. Ali, before you fall asleep when I was talking about pens, I wanted to go back to your selfie stick, and you declared your love, which must not speak its name, last week on the podcast, but then you wrote about it too.
I did.
Do you feel better now? Do you feel now that you're out in the open with your selfie stick addiction?
Kind of. until Ren blasted me. No.
It was loving teasing.
Eventually, Ren will be writing a piece about how she likes the selfie stick. Wait for it.
Nope.
No, yeah, we had a really good experience with them on a trip. I still don't think that they're items that people should bring everywhere to every function all of the time. I think there are a lot of people that are super obnoxious with them. I think one of her selfie article, she posted a picture of someone using their phone on a selfie stick.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of those obnoxious times. So I think they serve a purpose and a place. If you're traveling or doing things where you want more than just one or two people along with anything in the background, it's kind of a necessary evil. My big thing is I don't like to hand my phone to strangers. I have a pathological fear that someone is going to grab my phone and run, or I'm going to hand it to them and they're just going to run. So I think they have a time and a place. That's not all the time, everywhere, but it's when it's appropriate. And I still think that there's some etiquette that should be unspoken, but apparently is not. So
There was this great picture, and I think you probably saw it on Twitter, of a reporter using a selfie stick and a microphone to basically be her own one-person recording, like remote reporting unit.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was awesome.
Budget cameraman.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, it's basically the equivalent of having an air-built Steadicam or monopod.
It's the equivalent of having a friend.
Yes, or a friend. Oh, the friend is my metal stick.
Do we need a selfie hat? Would a selfie hat be even easier because you wouldn't have to use a hand to hold it?
Did you ever see the TV hat, Renee?
No.
What?
The TV hat was something that was at Macworld a couple of years ago. This is kind of off topic, but it was like a baseball cap, and then it extended out 4 feet, and it had a slot for your iPhone, and you put that in there, and then there was like a little, like a curtain that way, so it gave you basically a way to watch movies and feel like you're immersed in surround set.
See, Kevin Mitchell always wanted a FaceTime hat, so he could just put his phone in the hat and walk around talking to people on FaceTime.
I mean, he could use that with the TV hat.
Yeah.
He
shouldn't, but he could.
Yeah.
But he would probably walk into things.
Yes.
He doesn't care.
Definitely would walk into things.
Yeah, Kevin doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
Cartoon, he would bounce.
I feel apathetic towards selfie sticks, mainly because I've only ever seen them used inappropriately, with the exception of Allie's European article. But I love the idea. Like, I have a tiny little iPhone Steadicam that I reviewed way back when. That's pretty awesome. And there are definitely use cases. The problem is, with great power comes great responsibility, and
Yep.
I don't know if our humanity is ready for the responsibility of the selfie stick.
I would agree. Someone, when we were actually purchasing ours at Suffrages in London, one of the guys, he was laughing when he rang us up, and I said, "Really?" And he's like, he said, "No." He said something to the effect of, "Man, there was someone walking down the street using a selfie stick, and they put it out in the street, and just a double-decker came by and took the phone off with it." So,
That's brilliant.
yeah.
Well, at least then your data is being destroyed and not stolen.
Yeah. So, again, responsibility. That person was not being responsible, and they reaped the repercussions of that.
So sort of the last thing, there was late breaking rumors. Mark Gurman from 9 to 5 Mac posted about battery life on the Apple Watch, and it's been something people have been asking about a lot. And Mark's got excellent sources, and I'm sure if he says, this is what recent battery life is like, that's what it's like. I'm just not sure that I really care what battery life is while it's still under development. I'll care about it once the shipping version is out, and I'll pay attention to what Apple says, and we'll certainly test it when we review it. But I talked about this a little bit with Mike Hurley yesterday on his show. I don't know how much I really need to know about the development process. I know I'm going to buy an Apple Watch. How concerned should I be about battery life right now before it's
Not at all. Yeah. I mean, for all you know, the iPhone 6 Plus's battery life was 50% or 40% less during development than it was at release. It doesn't end up affecting you, I guess. So if it does end up affecting you, then maybe it might waver your purchase decision, but we don't know that right now. So I don't really care. That's my vote.
The thing that I found funny too, not funny, but funny in a cute sort of way, is he has the code name for the version of, it's a stripped down version of iOS that runs on the Apple Watch. It uses things like front board instead of full springboard and other things. But the code name is Ski Hill, which is interesting because Apple uses the name of ski hills for iOS code names, but they have never used, to my knowledge, Mount Tremblant, which is sitting just north of me here in Montreal, and I think would be the perfect name for iOS 9 or iOS 10.
Hint, Apple.
Putting it out there, Tremblant. Think about it. It sounds epic. Way more, I mean, better than Sochi, right?
And it sounds so easy to spell.
Yeah. Well, no one has to spell it. I mean, it's just an internal code name. They just got to use it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting from a, oh my God, do you want to know everything about the Apple Watch's development? And let us tell you about all of the things that we have extracted from people who may or may not still be at their jobs because.
Well, it's legitimate in the sense that, like, for movies, like, there's all the casting about the Steve Jobs movie. Is it going to be Christian Bale? Is it going to be, I forget who else was lined up for it. And some people are super interested in it. They want to know every little bit of the production, every little bit of the casting. They want to know episodes, what number are we coming on to? 9, 10, 13. The next Star Wars movie. They want to know all about the casting and the plot and everything. And other people want absolutely no spoilers. They want to wait and walk into the theater the same day. And I think technology has become like that, where some people really want to read every little bit, every little thought process, every little decision, every little state of a product as it goes from prototype into production. And other people just want to pick it up on release day and see what they think about it. And I'm happy there's people catering to all of those sort of interest groups. But for me, it's like it just feels, as I get older, is that what I'm saying here? As I get older, as I mature, the stress of things that are not under my control and don't directly affect me, I think I'm more interested in the problems that watch is going to solve rather than how long it takes the battery life to get to whatever internal release criteria they have.
Yeah, and honestly, based on the reported, it's really not that terrible. It's not like they're like, Apple Watch has a 5-hour battery life. Oh no! It actually sounds on par for most of the, smartwatch related.
It just has to last longer than an iPhone 5.
Yeah.
The
real question I have is how much of a battery drain is it going to be on my
your phone?
Yeah, exactly.
Or theoretically, how much extra battery are you going to get out of your phone because you're not taking it out and turning it on?
That's true.
They just have to balance, because when one dies, the other probably doesn't.
What's the sound of one iPhone clapping?
Yeah, I would definitely want to set mine up to have the watch run out first, because I can at least use my phone independently.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Can I get an extra 4 hours of dicking around out of my phone because I'm not taking it out? Maybe.
The phone is the Star Destroyer. The watch is the Imperial Shuttlecraft.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works.
I kind of get it.
You've watched at least 2 of the Star Wars movies now, Allie. Nice.
That went the wrong way, but get it.
But the thing that also, like, an iPad, if I have my iPad at home, I charge it once a week maybe, and I watch occasional videos, I surf the web, I answer emails. If I'm on a plane, I can run that battery down on a 6-hour, 7-hour flight, because I'm using it constantly. And the watch will be the same thing. If it's 5 hours, 4 hours of battery life, that's if you sit there, looking at the screen with the screen lit up, with the radios lit up constantly. That's 4 hours of active use. That's not just testing it every one, like looking at notifications or doing things. That gets strung out over longer periods, and that's where the battery life. Apple's really good. Some people, like some manufacturers who won't be named, will say like, well, our product gets 2 days of battery life provided you spend at least 80% of the time asleep. That's not 2 days of. Apple's pretty good at saying this has got 10 hours of Wi-Fi use time. And that means actually sitting there surfing the web for 8 hours or 10 hours or watching videos for 10 hours. And the watch, I think, will be similar. It'll have, so many hours of reasonable use. How much we'll normally use it in the course of a day. And then we'll find out if that's enough for us or not.
We'll find out.
I would agree. I will say with battery life, the iPad Air 2 is kind of impressed me. On an 8-hour and 40-minute flight, I watched a movie, played games, and I think we landed with I had 42% left on my battery.
Jeez.
I mean, given I turned my screen brightness down a lot, I always do that. That's the first thing I do on a flight, and I keep it in airplane mode.
Yep.
So
That's still 40% at the end. Like,
Yeah, and that was
That's
almost
amazing.
9 hours.
That's amazing.
It's impressive. Most impressive.
I still have an iPad 3.
Rich.
Good old iPad 3. I got one of those.
Yeah, I don't know. I just stopped. I was that one jerk who was like, you know what? I could buy another iPad, or I could just get a MacBook Air to walk around with, and typing wins.
Well, and pretty soon, I mean, Peter's going to even have selfie sticks for MacBook Airs, so you're really not left out.
Call me.
All right, on that note, I'm going to wrap this up before we do more damage to ourselves or to each other. Rich, if people aren't already familiar with you, where can they go to learn more about you and to look at your wonderful comics?
Clango.org is my shortest URL, and R. Stevens, R-S-T-E-V-E-N-S, on the Twitters.
And Clango is C-L-A-N-G-O?
Correct.
Awesome. Ren, how about you?
Well, I am at iMore.com all the time, every day. And also Settern on Twitter, Instagram, and other social networks.
S-E-T-T-E-R-N.
Yes.
Awesome. Allie?
I am at imore.com every day, and I am at iMuggle on all of the social things, Twitter, Instagram. Yeah, I don't really know what other social services I
know,
use,
I
but
was
if I
like,
have any more.
I want to
App.net.
Tumblr,
Counts.
app.net.
Storehouse. Does app.net still exist? Didn't they shut down?
Yeah.
Oh, I know I did a really good comic for nerds when somebody reposted on app.net, and I get a notification. It's like there's those 4 nerds that are left.
Yeah.
And to continue my spelling spree, that's I-M-U-G-G-L-E, right, Allie?
Yep.
Awesome. I am also at iMore, but I'm not going to say it in a way that makes it feel like I'm so trapped and locked down there.
Oh,
I'm
no.
You like me.
IMore's the best.
I have been sentenced to iMore for every day as well.
No.
You can also find me at Rene Ritchie, R-E-N-E-R-I-T-C-H-I-E. That was the hardest one to actually spell. I'm going to need to get a better Twitter handle.
Renee, it's your name. How do you not know how to spell your name?
It's like I don't know what my phone number is because I never call myself.
Oh.
I mean, you spell your name a lot, right?
I don't say my name that often.
I never.
I'm not like James Bond. Ritchie, Rene Ritchie. Ba-dow, ba-dow, ba-dow.
I don't know what you do in your spare time.
I found out Allie is actually a Bond fan. She'd never watched Star Wars, but she
Damn.
knew everything about James Bond. It was so
Now I'm
confusing.
biting myself for not doing the Bond collection when it was on sale.
Oh, I bought it. So
A
good.
small part of my cheapness kicked in, and I was like, no, I don't need that.
I've never seen one.
You've
A
never seen a
Bond
Bond
movie?
movie?
No.
They're very silly.
Yeah.
Fun.
I'm not
Silly.
going to say anything because
The older ones are almost Austin Power prequels.
See, I'm weird. I only like movies that have robots in them. And when I was a kid, I wouldn't watch a movie if it didn't have a robot in it. So that I'm not the best person.
Roger Moore is almost a robot.
Yeah, and it's arguable that Sean Connery kind of is too.
Take
Well,
that back.
He hasn't changed.
All right, guys. So you can find Peter is at Flarg, F-L-A-R-G-H. This show is typically on Thursdays, but it might be moving really soon. We'll keep you up to date on that. In the meantime, you can find the video at youtube.com/iMoreVideo, and you can find the audio on iTunes. I want to thank all of you, our entire community, you wonderful, beautiful, passionate, awesome people, for joining us, and we'll be back next week. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.